Hi, Lisa with Greenhookstudio here with another crochet repair video. These were a bunny and a Triceratops. They have been sent to me from Vancouver, Washington for a little time in my stuffed animal hospital. I am going to do my best to help them to look whole again and send them back home. We will have to reattach these legs and this arm, as well as repair the nose. Out of sheer luck, I found the exact same yarn in my stash. It doesn't quite look like it matches, but then if you look at the inside, you can see it's got the same lighter color and sheen to it that the outside had just gotten worn out and discolored slightly over time. So I found the exact match. And this first mend I am doing is just sewing up the tail. There really wasn't much yarn missing here. It was just a small hole. And so I just attached some new yarn and sewed it shut with my yarn needle in a way that it sort of mimics the crochet stitches and also prevents it from unraveling any further. After checking to make sure that I have completely sewn up the hole, everything is mended, then I will tie it off. I always do 2 or 3 knots for extra security. And then on stuffed animals, I hide the thread inside so that there is no way that this knot is pulling out. There's all sorts of extra yarn left inside. Now the tail is finished with a little bit of trimming the loose edges off, and I'm ready to move on to the next fix, which I decided to sew up the top of his head next. There was another spot where I really didn't need to recrochet anything. I could just tuck in some loose ends and sew it up in a secure way, much like the tail. Next up, his arm. Now, because his arm was crocheted bottom up and then sewn on, I chose to cut off what was attached to the dinosaur and just crochet new rows onto the arm itself and sew that on. So I just need to remove this damaged piece so that I can put the new piece on here. Before I can crochet new rows onto this arm, I have to remove the damaged yarn from this piece as well. So I had to pick out a lot of loose pieces and then get down to where the undamaged original rows are so that I could begin recrocheting those rows. First, I used the original yarn that was left, and then once I ran out of good original yarn, I will add in new yarn that I had in my stash. After a little crocheting, I compared the two arms together to see how many more rows I needed to do and decided I needed just a couple more. So I did those real quick, and now it is finished off and ready to sew onto the body. So I am going to sew it onto the body. You can see its original spot because of the yarn discoloration difference there. And I'm just going to stitch it on as securely as I can. And then again, finish it off with my 3 knots and hide the tail inside. And then I am all finished with this arm. After a little once over to check my work, I decide where to go next. And I'm choosing the legs. Again, there's a lot of damage here, and the best thing to do is going to be to cut them off, recrochet part of them, and reattach, just like the arm. So this is going to be a very similar process of pulling out the damage and recrocheting before sewing them back on. Now our friend has 4 limbs securely attached again. Again, checking over my work before I move on, I decided to fix this small hole that I found in the hand. This was just a quick stitch up, a few small stitches, and everything hidden inside when I tied off. Now it's time for the big fix. First thing here is to just take a really good look at everything. Pull out any random scraps of yarn so that I have some good things to work with, and figure out where to start crocheting. And I found a spot underneath his chin area to start in with some new yarn to recrochet some rows. And here I am just using new yarn to recreate the bottom part of his face and working with the existing stitches to kind of figure out and improv the pattern to fill it into what it should have originally looked like. And I'm working into some of the existing stitches and then crocheting into the sides of some of these rows because not all of the complete rows were missing. So again, this is kind of a crochet improv exercise to be able to fill this in. It was a fun challenge, a fun puzzle, and I'm glad that I am able to do this for people. During the process of rebuilding his nose, I use a mix of this new yarn and the old yarn and weave things in as I go. But again, I try to use as much of the original as possible. So you may see me switch between yarns here sometimes. Right there, I'm using some of the original to work this piece. And then when I run out of it, I will finish that off and hide it inside. And then also I use some of these to re-secure some of the stitches that have pulled out. When I get pretty much to the end of this, you'll see me leave the new yarn ball attached while I decide if I need any more or not. And then once I know that I'm finished with the new yarn, I just cut it off and hide it inside. To finish this mend and close the hole, I am sewing the old stitches to the new, and I have to make sure that I put my needle through the bottom both loops of these old stitches here, that I'm catching all these loops again so nothing can unravel, but also to mimic the look of a crochet stitch so that these blend in. Again, catching both and pulling through. That will hopefully make these hide and look like real crochet stitches again and not unravel. But the important thing is to remember to go through both loops before reconnecting. I also added a little bit more stuffing before closing up the nose completely. And just a little reminder for anyone, a crochet hook is actually a really great stuffing tool. Sometimes it helps you get it in there. Other times, fingers work great too. All right, with it restuffed, it's time to finish sewing his nose and see how he looks. All right, he is looking good. Now time for that last repair, his horn. This was pretty mangled, and I decided the best thing to do would be to remove it and just make a new one. So I cut off all the damaged parts, and then I make a new one based off of the other one that is still attached on the other side of his head, and just sew it back on, just like I did with the arms and legs. With all the major repairs done, it is now time for a little tidying up. I like to do this with my felting needle. It is perfect for tucking in any funky stitches or loose threads that may be sticking out anywhere. It just tucks them right in where they belong. I tell them who's boss and I hide them inside. And the felting needle also, besides poking things through, it helps lock the fibers in place better. I also noticed that his neck was pretty floppy and decide to give this a little shore up, a little more sturdiness before I declare him completely finished. So I'm just going to go around again, around his neck, and do fresh stitches nice and tight to help his neck to not be so floppy. Now everything is mended and the last end is woven in, and he is ready to go home. I am very pleased with how he turned out, and I can't wait to send him home to his owners. If you or someone you know has a stuffed animal or knit or crochet item in need of repair, please send me an email, greenhookstudio@gmail.com, and I would love to see if I can help you. Make sure you like, follow, and subscribe for more content like this in the future. Thanks for watching.